What's up YouTube, Lambo here. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but I was practicing for the ESL regionals, so I was busy with preparations and practice, but now I am back. And within that time frame, I played one special game. It was a ladder game on Ancient Cistern. I am the barcode here in the bottom left, and we're going to take a look at this replay from my point of view, where I had the biggest turnaround in this time frame. So how this game turned on its head, what I did, and just in general, how you can play against Protoss, I will show you guys in this little replay against Strange. We're playing against Strange, who's a 6,600 of my Protoss, so probably one of the top 4 European Protosses. Is that no? Wait, no, that's definitely wrong. Maybe top 5, top 6. There's so many Protosses. In my mind, I might be forgetting a couple. MMR wise, he's definitely on a level of someone like Skillus, but I definitely think Skillus is top 3. And then afterwards, I think Harsdam is 4th. So maybe Skillus is 5th. Yeah, Strange is 5th. So definitely one of the better Protosses we have in Europe. This game, I did scout. My opponent is going for no chrono. He went for a warp gate right away. And I am blind countering him going for a 3 gate this game. I'm going for a quick lair. I think I might have just forgotten link speed and that's why I'm doing it, but I'm basically just rushing roaches. So this would be really good against his normal build order, which is 3 gate, where he gets warp gate right away and then attacks us with about 9 adepts very early on into the game. So I'm getting a wall here since we didn't get blocked, and I'm just rushing out roach speed. If you have roaches out with roach speed, even if you're on a very low worker count, it's super strong against glaive timings. Now the issue is my opponent is not doing that. He's going for normal Stargate play. So we're in trouble. We're already behind without anything happening. We didn't lose anything, besides the one zergling on the other side of the map. And our opponent is going for a Stargate. We now have a pretty useless lair. So I figured, why don't I cancel my Roach Horn and go for a quick Hydra then? Now this is borderline trolling. I also don't have link speed to defend against adepts. So here come 2 adepts. I'm drone drilling a little bit here to kill them slightly faster. So now we lose 5 drones. The Oracle gets another 2, or at least 1. So now we lost 6 drones and we're even further behind. This early game is really bad for us. Usually how you want to play against the Protoss that play Stargate is you want to stay on one gas for as long as possible, delay your lair, delay your tech to get out as many drones as possible and maximize your mineral income, which is just something I was not able to do this game. So we're already in a terrible spot. I'm making a couple of Hydras for banter to fake in all in at this point, to get back into it. He sees I don't have gases on my 3rd. He also sees I don't have gases on my natural, but he does see that we have early Hydras. Now if he's a very smart player, he would know that we're not all-inning him, because if we were Hydra all-inning, we would not be on 2 gas, but he's respecting it. He's making a couple of cannons, and I think it's a very fair response from him, because he's already way up in workers and way ahead in the game as well. So a couple of cannons just in order to be safe is a good call. Usually if you're ahead, I know Aritosis says get more ahead, but sometimes making sure you don't die is not a bad step to take either. So that's what Strange did in this game. I'm gonna try my best to slow it down whenever there's action happening on the screen, but I like to go ×2 to not waste too much time. So yeah, we're going into an infestation pit and a baning nest. My theory here is I saw a couple of sentries. There is a high chance he's going stalkers and then probably also Robobay. So I'm trying to rush out lurkers, because Hydra Bane against a Colossus timing is very bad. So I'm trying to rush out my infestation pit and the lurker. Then obviously if we went for a very early attack, we would be in some sort of trouble. And there's another thing that this is really bad against, what we're doing here, and that is someone that scouts and then transitions into early carriers. Ground into carriers is the counter to lurkers. Just straight up lurkers suck against... That's why you don't really see lurkers against normal ground styles. One thing that lurkers are good against is if your opponent commits into a lot of stalkers. So if you see Zerg players on pro level make lurkers, most of the time it's against stalker-based compositions where your opponent invests a ton of gas into stalkers. Let's say they have 20 stalkers and 2 colossus. Those units are really bad against lurkers, which means they won't be able to afford the carriers right away, which is not the case here since our opponent already has the carriers. We've caught up in workers. which is also not exactly what we want to be at. But that's what we have to work with, and I guess considering the early game is... I'm pretty happy with it. And now we're just trying to make the lurkers work. So one of the important things is I tried to scout for fleet beacon timing, but my overseer got rejected in the top side of the map. So we have no idea right now. I'm thinking there's he probably has mostly ground units. I'm not expecting this early of a carrier switch. If there is a very early carrier switch, you have the choice between either you all in right away with the lurkers, can maybe bring your queens, or you go into a spire right away. And lurkers are not the perfect late game unit, but at least they get you there. And then eventually you can transition into Broodlords, but first you can go Corruptor, Viper, Lurker, which is not a real top late game composition, but it's transitionary composition, which helps you stay alive. It's just very difficult to maneuver with it. So we're attacking now. I see he's already researching. I got into a fantastic position here. Just lose one of the lurkers against the Disruptor Fire, and we got into his natural with a bunch of Lingbane. That stasis ward saved him. Super hard. Obviously, I see the carriers now, and we're in big trouble. The terrible thing here is not the trade we took. We've traded okay so far. It is that I don't have a Spire yet because I didn't scout the carriers. So my opponent has the carriers out, and we need to remake Hydras, which means we won't have gas for making Corruptors, Broodlords, and Vipers, and Spire upgrades, and all that other stuff. So while our opponent's army is gonna function well, and is gonna transition very well into the late game, ours is not. I'm currently just making an army to literally stay alive. So right now, my only thought is, okay, if I stay alive, maybe I can outplay him later on. So I'm making a lot of spores. And I'm producing Hydras without any carapace upgrades, just in order to get more anti-air on the field, because, well, I just didn't have a Spire. I wasn't ready for it. Usually Strange plays a very ground-centric style. So right now, I'm getting 2 Spires. I'm getting a Greater Spire. But as you can see, I have no money for the Corruptors. So even if this might not look that bad, supply-wise, Hydra, Lurker, Viper is not a late game composition. It's just not. It's an all-in composition, and it's an anti-ground composition. It's not a late game composition, whereas our opponent already has his late game army. The High Templars, the Disruptors, and the Carriers is what he wants to have against what we have. While we still want to trade away those Hydras. We don't need that many Lurkers, we just want to throw away the Hydras somehow and replace them with Corruptors. If we had 20 Corruptors instead of the 16 Hydras right now, the game would be completely fine, and we could then transition into Broodlords. But for now, I need to get rid of my army somehow while not dying. And Hydras are also not great at counterattacking because they kind of die against cannons and batteries. So me not being able to survive without making those Hydras is kind of rough. Now we're moving forward with the spores to try and secure our next base. I'm slowing down the game here a little bit. Our opponent's on a very, very high worker count. So right now he's just pressuring. He's gonna get a couple of those lurkers. We get one abduct on the carriers, but this is a terrible fight for us, as you can see. This was just on halftime, but basically all of his spells landed. And this is where you would think our opponent just A-moved us with, while being on more workers than us, that we're dead, right? It honestly looks like we're completely dead. He still has all of his carriers alive. Even the one I abducted, I'm pretty sure. And he just killed all of our lurkers here, all of our Hydras. This fight was terrible for us. And he's outmining us. So at this point, I thought about GGing, but I didn't quite, because I had enough Corruptors on the way where I felt like if my opponent would overextend, maybe we can kill the carriers. But we're on 140 supply against someone who's maxed out on SkyToss and is on 5 very healthy mining bases. So it looks impossible to come back, but I'm trying my best. I'm moving all the Spore Crawlers in here to tank a little bit. Moving forward with the Corruptors, we get one of the carriers. We're obviously focus firing carriers, since if you kill a carrier quicker, they lose DPS, rather than splitting your fire. And with the help of all the Spore Crawlers that we move forward, we managed to survive. Our position is still awful, And honestly, it shouldn't be playable, because we don't even have anti-ground. If he just warps in Zealots at this point, we're kind of dead. Just Zealot Archon together with his carriers, we're completely dead. We also only have 13 Corruptors against 9 carriers. We're just in all sorts of troubles. We're an equal base count. We just now are starting our spy upgrades. We're behind in everything imaginable. But the way you come back in these games is to go fully into the camping mode. Usually, the ways you come back this late into the game is you sit at home and you try to be cost effective while counterattacking. The counterattacks, not only can it deal damage, but they can also force mistakes out of your opponents. Maybe he's not watching, maybe you can attack the unit every now and again. And that way you can claw your way back into the game slowly but surely. I also have an added issue now, which is that my bases are gonna mine out at some point soon, since I went for these 5 bases quite early on. But I don't have creep to take a 5th base. I could try to take the top left base, but that would be super difficult to make a line of spores then. Or the base that I tried to take beforehand, but you saw how that went, when we were still in a slightly better position than now. This time at least we have Vipers and Corruptors. So we get double abducts, because these carriers are in front of the High Templars. And our spores are killing a couple of interceptors. We're sieging forward some of the lurkers. We're getting all of our lurkers here. He gets a feedback. We got, I think, 1 High Templar. But we didn't really lose a whole lot there. So this was a very good defense for us. So the weakness... wait, hold on. We're getting another 2 Corruptors here because he just wasn't paying attention and he had no High Templars in position here. So the reason Lurker Hydra or even Lurker Corruptor Viper is so bad in late game is because the Lurkers suck at zoning out High Templars. You can just move forward with the High Templars and I can't jump on them. Like, if the High Templars are way in front of the carriers, I can run forward with the Lurkers, burrow, and the High Templars can still just leave. Like, they can just run away when they see the Lurkers run at them. And even if they see the Lurkers start shooting, like, they can exactly test when the spikes come out and then they can see what the range is. And it's very, very easy to just maneuver around and find sweet spots where the carriers can start attacking the spore crawlers, but your High Templars still are in front of the carriers. Because the way it works is the carrier range, I'm not sure if you know this, but once the interceptors are out, it's the same as a Tempest because of the leash range that the interceptors have. So the carrier from here could theoretically shoot all of those spores and start killing the spore crawlers for free, while the High Templars that in front of the carriers, which means it should be impossible for me to abduct the carriers. And the issue is, since I don't have Brute Lords or Ultras, I can't just run forward and kill the High Templars, because if the Lurkers run forward, the carriers can simply target fire the Lurkers while the High Templars storm and run back. And theoretically, that type of engagement should always be terrible for the Lurker player. So, as you can see right now, he's getting the Interceptors out, but he's making a mistake with the High Templars. They're a little bit too far at the top. I'm trying to fish for the abducts, but I can see that he's also microing High Templars, of course. He messed up a little bit too much, and now he only has 2 High Templars left. I see it's only 2 High Templars, and the rest is mostly carriers. At this point, my Overlord scouts that my opponent is taking my own base. So, it is obvious that he is feeling confident here. But I realize it's just 2 High Templars, and the rest is simply carriers. So we do what we call the Loco maneuver. Now, this was not invented by Loco, but we still call it that just for banter. The first people I saw using it were the Maga and Bly. So if anything, it should be the Ukrainian move, maybe. I don't quite know. It's definitely not. Realistically, the Loco maneuver is still known as the Loco maneuver. You fly into your own parasitic bomb, and because of that, you can see all the interceptors die slowly but surely, if the carriers want to defend themselves and attack your Corruptors. So that's what we do. Our opponent here was a little bit overeager with the carriers, and he's gonna lose all of them while we barely defend our base. Now, we still need to expand and also deny our opponent's expansions. It's very, very important at this stage in the game. And this was clutch. We catch, what is it, a 12 High Templar Warpin? This is super expensive for our opponent. At this point, we're almost back resource loss-wise into the game. But here he warps in, 12 High Templars at once, and we just catch them and kill all of them for free. So that was a huge loss for our opponent, who's now also rallying another carrier, to defend this base that he took. Now, if he learns a lesson from this game, it should probably be to not expand literally in your opponent's face when you're winning. Just take more safe expansions. There's absolutely no reason to do that, because once you lose your army once, it's much easier for me to punish him and start killing his buildings. So just because he left his carriers alone without Void Rays, without Archons, without High Templar support, we're now somewhat back into this. Our Corruptors still are very, very low HP, so we need to watch out, and our mining is gonna run out very soon. But we also denied the freshest bases of our opponent, which means his own mining is gonna struggle as well a lot more. And now we're actually in a somewhat even position. Our opponent still has High Templar, Carrier, Archon. With superior upgrades, he has 2-2, soon to be 3-2-2, I think. Yeah, 3-2-2 on his carriers, so I would still always prefer the Protoss position here by quite a lot, but this is now a much more playable game. I think the game beforehand was not really playable. It should not have been, at least. And we get another abduct. One thing that is also important to note is that if we're obviously in my camera, it's very important to have your camera not where your army is. Like, you don't move your army around like this. You move your army around, and always you try to check exactly what your opponent unit positioning is. If his High Templars are too far forward, you can maybe try to get them with a couple of Zerglings. If a carrier is exposed, you can try to get an abduct. So whenever you can, try to check your opponent's army movement exactly. And even just, it helps with judging his exact army. We get another abduct, and we're running at him with just the lurkers. I can see that it's just not a full army together. He has 3 carriers here, he has 1 Archon. We're getting the abducts. Since our Corruptors are very low HP, I don't want them to tank the Archon shots. But now our opponent killed our freshest base, and now once again he's also killing our 5th base. So we're completely out of money, while our opponent is still on 90 workers. The thing is, I don't think he's mining off of those perfectly either, but yeah, he's way out mining us, as you can see here in the income. It was very important, though, for us to catch these carriers. It's still better for us if we kill... if we trade 4k resources better, and then give up a base or 2. Still a decent trade for us, since our opponent is not rich at all at this point anymore. I'm obviously just staying on Lurker Corruptor Viper, because I see that it's working. I'm also too broke to transition to Brutals. Brutals are very, very expensive. It's super important to be in position with the lurkers always as well, and it's very hard. Usually it's a little bit better to split them, but then if you split them, your opponent can do stuff like this. Now he's engaging fully into my lurkers. These are most of my lurkers on one spot, grouped up. We get parasitic bombs on the carriers, and we can dive on top of them because he lost all of his High Templars and Archons once again. This time he does recall, but we still get a decent amount of carriers, and we still left some lurkers on the left side, so we traded well there as well, while also establishing the 2 bases again. So now we're remaking drones. And we're retaking the base that, well, it is our base, but it was his base during this game. For a little while at least. We saw he also made an Immortal, so we need to make sure we don't underproduce lurkers. I went up to 18 lurkers because it looked like he was transitioning into somewhat of a ground army. And now here he just goes suiciding again with all of his army. Because he just I'm not sure if it was because he felt like he was far enough ahead to do that kind of stuff. But running into the lurkers is the best thing for the lurkers. They're super good defensive units. It's like the only thing they're good at. So... yeah, we're at this point 10k resources ahead with an army that should not be trading cost effective against what our opponent has to offer. And he does get some stuff with the run-bys always, but the run-bys don't trade cost effectively, they just slow me down a little bit. And at this point he can't attack me anymore, especially without oracles, because, yeah. He gave up on the air fight, which means the Corruptors now can zone out observers. He's just not mining anymore. He never took these bases, he never cleared this creep. And that way we came back. If you think about it once again, at this point, I was very, very, very close to actually quitting the game. At this point, I only played to survive, and I still basically got A-moved by this army, because I was forced to make Hydras. And Hydra Hydra, Lurker, Viper is not a late game composition, as you can see in this fight. I figured this might be a good fight. Well, I had to stand my ground here because I wanted to protect the space. But it was just not a fight I could win. The High Templars died a little bit too slowly, so he got my Vipers feedbacked, and then the rest was basically just storming and A-moving, and my units just lost the fight against the Interceptors. If you pause the game at this moment and you're telling me that the Zerg is winning, I would tell you you're crazy, but it is what happened, so that's why I wanted to show you guys this replay. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if I am going through the replay too fast. Should I keep it on just normal speed, or do you prefer this? I heard the attention span nowadays is sinking. I'm not sure if this is true or just a myth, but the one thing I know is that maybe some people would prefer it this way. Some people might prefer the other. Just let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.